Children of a Lesser Bog. The second episode of the new Futurama season dropped today. This is definitely the only new piece of Futurama content to drop between now and last week. Absolutely no new developments other than that between now and then. After the first episode, The Impossible Stream, I was definitely a bit nervous, but also curious to see what direction they went in next. With the previous episode focusing a lot on meta humor and commentary, I was worried that the whole season would follow a similar tone. Children of a Lesser Bog delivers something completely different. Not only is this episode different than the previous episode, but it brings something completely different than any of the hundreds of episodes before it. We get to explore the emotions of characters that haven't had their personal lives touched on much in previous runs, as well as new dynamics and interactions between existing and new characters that really help move not just the episode, but Futurama as a whole forward. This synopsis and review of the new Futurama episode will contain spoilers, so if you're planning on watching it, pause the video, then go ahead and do that. The episode opens with Fry chewing on his signature jacket, enjoying a piece of candy stuck to it from 1,000 years ago, until Zoidberg chews it off, prompting Fry and Bender to create a new version of the candy since it hasn't been made for a long time. When the sticky candy pulls out Amy's teeth, she goes through her calendar looking for a date that would work for a dentist appointment. While going through her calendar, Amy discovers the due date for her children. Conceived in the episode, Kif gets knocked up a notch. They go back to the planet, Amphibios 9, to watch their children emerge from the swamp. While the dozens, if not hundreds of children that Amy and Kif gave birth to come to land, predators such as crocodiles, dragonflies, and Zoidberg eat all but 3 of them. Amy Wong's parents are here for this scene as well. Hilarious as always, not accepting the ugly-looking creatures as their grandchildren. Later, when the crew is at the Planet Express headquarters, we receive some lore regarding how Kif's species reproduces and matures. The age to which they mature in the swamp depends on the temperature of the water they grow in. The warmer the water, the older they appear when they arise from the swamp. Even though sci-fi shows don't have to explain everything, it's nice when they address something this outlandish that would otherwise break the suspension of disbelief, and they came up with a clever way of doing so as well. It's nice that they did this, because it gives them opportunities to explore a more realistic sibling dynamic with children of different ages, rather than having 3 little triplets running around. They also touch up on how Kif's species reproduces, but there isn't anything covered here that isn't already touched on in the episode Kif gets knocked up a notch. As a brief summary, Kif's species can reproduce simply by touching each other, and Amy is the mother of the children because she is the one who made Kif receptive to pregnancy. But technically, Leela is the mother as well, because she touched Kif in this state and genetically the children are hers. In spite of the fun moments and great memories they begin to create with their new children, Amy and Kif find parenting exhausting. This becomes more of an issue for them when Kif is called in by Zap to go on a mission. When Kif leaves on said mission, we get an emotional scene of Amy and her children breaking down and crying one by one. This is when I realized that the episode was taking a more serious tone than I expected from the new season. Amy isn't able to watch all 3 of the kids and go to work, so she begins to fall apart. When the babysitter isn't able to make it, she asks Leela to watch the kids so she can get some rest. Meanwhile, Kif is on his mission when Zap discovers the honey candies he brought from Planet Express. This leads to a scene I much rather forget, but it comes up later in an important way. Kif and Zap land on an outpost that has lost contact with the dupe, and not a single proper noun in that sentence makes sense in any normal context. On the outpost, we see a familiar face, the whale biologist from the episode 300 Big Boys, but now he's a bear biologist. He explains that the local bears on the planet have ripped apart the transmitter, and that's why he wasn't able to give status updates. Once Kif fixes the transmitter, they are ready to be on their way home, but Zap eats some of the honey candies from earlier, attracting the bears due to the smell, which ends up with them dragging him to their cave. While this is happening, Leela has been babysitting the kids quite a lot, and it's clear that they've been forming a connection. Ever since the babies emerged from the swamp, they've taken a liking to Leela, likely because she is their biological mother. After watching this for a while, Amy snaps at Leela because she's afraid the kids love her more. She calls Kif breaking down because she's afraid she's a bad mom. Kif wants to go home as fast as possible to help Amy and the kids, but first he must rescue Zap from the bears. Up to this point in the show, Kif is portrayed as a wimp and a pushover, but now that he has kids to live for, we see him step up, mature quite a bit, and grow a pair when need be. While Kif is going bear hunting, Amy receives alarming news. Her status as mother is being challenged. She initially blames Leela for challenging her, but she soon discovers that Leela had no part in it, and that her motherhood was automatically brought into question whenever it was discovered that the children were not genetically hers. Later, Amy and Leela have a moment where they reconcile their differences, and Amy admits she snapped at Leela earlier because she was jealous and worried that she wasn't a good mom. Kif finishes off the bears while Zap crawls to safety. When it comes down to the last few bears, Kif notices that it is 2 parents trying to protect their cubs. He isn't able to kill them, so he creates a diversion and runs off. On an unrelated note, I don't think we're going to be seeing the biologist returning for a third episode. They do a weird thing here where they show Zap crawling away with gunshots in the background initially, but literally 45 seconds later, they flash back to Kif not actually shooting the bears. It was a weird choice, but they got the point across. Kif meets with Amy so they can go through the challenge of maintaining custody together. They are brought into a room and Amy is asked if she loves the kids, to which she responds, "More than I ever knew I could love anything." Upon saying this, she passes the test, because that's all that's needed for her to be the kid's mother. In spite of some weird pacing, connections, and segues, it was a great episode with a message that can resonate with pretty much anyone. I was a fan of how they packaged this episode through Amy, because in all previous installments of the show, Amy was the one character that they never let grow up. But the growth that she went through in this episode pretty much caught her up. Amy, Kif, and the kids were the primary focus of the episode, but in spite of that, all the other characters had hilarious moments. The humor last episode was just meta commentary, but in this episode, everyone is just catching strays for absolutely no reason. This isn't to say that Kif and Amy didn't have their funny moments as well. Even though the serious plot was following them, they contributed a good amount of humor to this episode. A good example is how they made the oldest kid sound exactly like Kif. The overarching themes of the brutality of nature all throughout the episode, then ending with a reminder that we're capable of being more at the end was a nice way to go about everything as well. All these factors led to this episode not only being more heartfelt, but funnier than the first. Also, another thing that I just noticed this week and wanted to bring up, it's nice to see that the new episodes are 25 minutes long instead of 22. I'd give this episode around a 9 out of 10. Overall, this episode makes me entirely reconsider the video I made a little over a year ago, where I called the revival of the show into question. And quite truthfully, the Impossible stream didn't do that. I'm not excited for the next episode as well. I feel that a commentary on cryptocurrency written in 2021 is going to feel pretty dated by this point. Hell, South Park's commentary on NFTs felt dated upon release in the COVID special, and that probably came out like a few weeks after it was written. I think this next episode will contribute to the modern trend of having popular characters repeat jokes that have already been made on Twitter a million times, but regardless, I'll be here to review it. Subscribe now so you can see next week's review, and here is the review of last week's episode in case you missed it. See you later.